So John calls me up and says, Bruce isn't playing Joe's this week. This Springsteen guy isn't playing Joe's this week. He's playing at Charlie's Bar in Cambridge. Come on into Cambridge. And I was living out in Somerville, which isn't very far away. John was living in Concord. Come on into Harvard Square, and I'll buy you dinner. And I sort of reluctantly agreed. I was, because my girlfriend was coming in from Detroit the next night. We were going to go see him. And then the other thing was it would mean I would miss Kojak. I'm not kidding you. I almost missed the show in order to see Kojak. How pathetic is that?
Wait a minute. Kojak?
Kojak was the TV show right then. It was the most creative show on television, believe it or not. I mean, of a kind of cop show, if you were into that kind of,
Okay, we could do an hour on this, but let's move on. You almost missed it because
I am dragged down there by John. And although at my birthday party recently, John swore that it was me who dragged him down. That's not true. And we come up to the joint that they're playing in, which is a littler bar than Joe's, which was very little. And standing outside with his hands in his back pocket. It was April, but it was still cold in the evenings. And bouncing up and down. There's like a little glass thing, like where you put a menu or something. Well, they've got John's review of the album from the Real Paper in, which was this alternate weekly we were working for. He's got John's review of the album in the window of this little menu place. And the guy is reading it, and I'd say to John, well, that's Bruce Springsteen right there. He's got holes in his jeans and black leather jacket on, and he's freezing to death. And so we walk up, and I reintroduce myself. We had met like once for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something. I don't think I'd interviewed him yet. And Mike Appel came out. So we end up in the joint talking to Mike and Bruce for like half an hour before the show, which was a little tense because of the stuff John had written about the production. Basically, John and Mike kind of jawed at each other, and Bruce and I watched from the other side of the table. But they took two. I mean, this place was like, it had like Formica tabletops and kitchen chairs with like kind of vinyl seats. That was just like a bar. And maybe there was a stage that was 6 inches off the stage, but don't hold me to that, because it wouldn't surprise me if there wasn't. Like a bar that occasionally had a band, and maybe it held 150 people. It wasn't full. And what followed was literally an hour and a half, or whatever it was, probably more like an hour and a half, maybe two, given who it was, of music that in my mind passed in the blink of an eye and changed my life completely, and as far as I can tell, forever. Because what I saw was Bruce with a different drummer, with Boone Carter instead of Mad Dog Lopez. And he had gained some confidence since I'd seen him at Max's. And it was one of the most incredible shows I ever saw anybody do, including him. It's one of the greatest shows I ever saw him do. Opened with New York City Serenade. Well, actually opened with a Mozart prelude that Davey played on piano, and then Bruce singing New York City Serenade, and then into Fats Domino's Let the Four Winds Blow. Unless if I went and looked it up, maybe it's the other way around, but that's what I remember it being. And ended with probably 2:45. The whole second album, the whole first album, a lot of interpretations of classic 60s songs, none of which were obvious, some of which were very, very important records to me. I don't know if he sang Then He Kissed Me That Night, or, which he did Then She Kissed Me, but, on that level. And I can remember John and I, who both even then got up very early, talking at about 6:30 or 7. Bar closed at 2, so we were out of there by then. 6:30 or 7 o'clock the next morning, John and I are on the phone, basically asking each other if that really happened last night.
You had both seen him before?
No, John hadn't seen him before.
It was that big of a change between the Max's show and this show.
Enormous change, and a lot of which was about having a drummer who just hit harder. Vinny had a very light touch, relatively speaking. He liked to play around the beat. Boom Carter liked to play behind a beat and very heavy, like a jazz drummer. You know, like somebody who'd been listening to Elvin Jones, not Mickey Hart, whoever the Dead's drummer was then. You know, and the drive, this greater drive, everything just exploded. Plus which, you know, all of the first of all, you got a guy who's got 2 albums out, not 1 album. So he can distill down those 2 records, whatever the flaws on those 2 records disappear. Plus he can tell stories and stuff. He can throw in all these weird musical ideas. He's got a fantastic band. You know, Steve isn't in it yet, but, you know, it's Gary, Clarence, Danny, David Sanchez, and Boom Carter. That's a hell of a band. It is. You know, with Bruce playing guitar, Bruce is the only guitar in the band. So there's a lot of shit-hot Bruce guitar. And really, that was it, you know. I can't say it's the greatest show I ever saw him do. It isn't. It's among the greatest shows I've ever seen anyone do, and it was the most startling show I ever saw anybody do. Anybody.
And a life-changing one for you, obviously.
Utterly unprepared for how good this was going to be.